The unseen signal. The Galactic Council had always prided itself on maintaining control over the vast reaches of the galaxy. For centuries, they kept everything running smoothly, each species respecting the established order. But today, something was different. An unexpected signal from an unremarkable planet, Earth, had appeared on their radar. It wasn't supposed to happen. Earth, a small, relatively isolated world, had never been a concern for the Council. The humans there were primitive, their technology far behind most of the galaxy's civilizations. But now, something had changed. Something that sent a ripple of unease across the galaxy. The signal was strange. The message, when decoded, was simple but unmistakable. We are ready. Earth will join the war. There were no details, no context, just those words, echoing through the vastness of space. But what did it mean? How could a planet like Earth, barely a blip on the galactic map, think it could join a conflict that involved beings far more advanced than they could ever dream to be? Inside the Galactic Council chambers, leaders from dozens of alien species gathered in a tense silence. Their minds raced, trying to comprehend what this message could mean. Among them was Erin, a tall, formidable figure from the Zirconian Empire, who was the first to speak. "This is a mistake," Erin said, his deep voice carrying the weight of years of experience. "The humans are far too weak to even comprehend what they're stepping into. This signal, it must be a bluff." He stood, his glowing red eyes scanning the room, but no one disagreed with him immediately. There was a shared understanding that the human species had been nothing more than an afterthought, a simple and insignificant race. The Council had always considered Earth too backward to pose a threat, and for good reason. Their technology was crude, and they had never shown any signs of reaching beyond their small world. However, Zora, a member of the Council from the Teruvian Collective, shook her head. She was one of the most experienced diplomats in the galaxy and had been working with Earth's leaders for years. "It may be more than that. I've been following their developments closely. They've been advancing much faster than we anticipated. I fear this is no idle threat." The room fell silent again. Could it be true? Could Earth have somehow unlocked a power that was unknown to the rest of the galaxy? Jarek, a cautious and calculating leader from the Nerthian Federation, spoke next. "If the humans are serious about this, we must respond. Immediately. They cannot be allowed to disrupt the balance we fought so hard to maintain. We need to send a message that Earth's participation in this war will not be tolerated." Erin scoffed, slamming his fist onto the table. "Let them come. It will be an easy victory for us. They are nothing. Just a misguided species with delusions of grandeur. Their weapons are laughable." But Zora's face was troubled. "You underestimate them, Erin. The humans are unpredictable. And this signal, it isn't something they would send without reason." The discussion continued for hours as different members of the Council argued over what to do. Some were ready to ignore the signal, assuming it was a mistake or some sort of elaborate hoax. Others feared that Earth had found something they didn't understand, a power capable of changing the course of the war. On Earth, the signal had been received by a small team of scientists working in a secret facility located beneath the frozen ice of Antarctica. They had been monitoring strange energy readings from a long-forgotten alien artifact buried deep in the ice. For years, it had remained dormant, a relic from a time before humanity even existed. But recently, it had begun to stir, its energies growing stronger. Dr. Eva Ford, one of the lead scientists, stared at the data on her screen. The readings were unlike anything she had ever seen. The artifact had always been a mystery, but now it was pulsing with energy, unusual alien energy. And with it came the strange signal. Earth was being contacted. What does it mean? Ford whispered to herself. She knew that the Council would never believe humanity could be capable of something so extraordinary. The humans had always been seen as primitive, struggling to survive in a vast and unforgiving universe. But this This was different. Something had shifted. She rushed to inform the president of Earth. The world was on the brink of a change, and Ford knew that Earth's fate was about to be tied to something much bigger than they could imagine. Back in the Galactic Council chambers, the debate was intensifying. What if Earth wasn't bluffing? What if they had unlocked something ancient, something that could tip the balance of the war in their favor? The Council agreed on one thing. They couldn't ignore this. The fate of the galaxy might rest on what Earth did next. As the debate raged on, the message continued to echo in the minds of the Council members. We are ready. Earth will join the war. None of them knew it yet, but those simple words would soon be the beginning of a conflict that would change the galaxy forever. The message from Earth had stirred something deep within the Galactic Council. A ripple of uncertainty spread across the galaxy, each leader caught in a storm of conflicting emotions. They couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to shift. A power they didn't understand was waking up on that tiny, insignificant planet. Back on Earth, Dr. Eva Ford's hands shook as she watched the monitor in front of her. The alien artifact, buried beneath miles of frozen ice in Antarctica, was no longer dormant. It was alive. The readings were unlike anything humanity had encountered before, an energy source far more advanced than their technology could explain. She had always suspected that the artifact held secrets, but now she was certain. The Earth's future, and possibly the fate of the galaxy, lay in its mysterious power. Ford had spent years studying the artifact with a small team of top-tier scientists, but no one had expected this. No one had expected the artifact to begin resonating with energy. It pulsed steadily, as though it were responding to something far beyond their understanding. The message had been received almost simultaneously with the awakening. Could the two be connected? Was this artifact somehow responding to a call? What's happening to it? Ford whispered, more to herself than anyone else in the room. The artifact's energy increased, and the temperature inside the facility dropped sharply as if the ice surrounding the artifact had come alive as well. The lights flickered, and alarms blared. Her colleague, Dr. Maxine Porter, rushed into the room. Eva, you need to see this. Ford turned to see Porter standing near the large viewing window that looked out over the cavernous lab. What they saw through the thick glass was enough to send a chill down their spines. A giant beam of blue light shot up from the center of the ice, breaking through the ceiling and sending shards of ice flying. The energy readings were off the charts. It's activated, Ford said softly. But what does it mean? Why now? Before she could gather her thoughts, an encrypted message came through on the screen. The words were simple, yet terrifying in their clarity. We are ready. Earth will join the war. The same message from earlier. The words now had a weight that none of them had anticipated. On the other side of the world, in the United Nations, President Jonathan Moore sat at his desk, staring at the decoded message that had come in from Antarctica. It had taken hours to verify, but now there was no doubt. Earth had just sent a signal to the Galactic Council. The implications were staggering. He'd known about the artifact buried in the ice. It had been classified, and only a handful of government officials were aware of it. But no one had imagined that it would lead to this. No one had expected that Earth might be drawn into a war far beyond its capabilities. Sir, we've been monitoring Council communications, his chief advisor, Richard Hawkins, said, entering the room. They know about the signal. They are concerned. President Moore looked up. Concerned. Terrified. Hawkins replied, his voice shaking slightly. The Council has never considered Earth as anything more than a backwater planet. But this changes everything. They don't understand how Earth could be involved. And they're afraid. The President stood and paced the room. What do we do now, Richard? The Council could respond in any number of ways. They may see this as a challenge. They may come for us. Hawkins paused, clearly nervous. We don't even know what we're dealing with. That artifact could be far more advanced than anything the Council has seen. If Earth can harness it, we might be able to hold our own. But if we don't, we could be wiped out before we even get a chance to defend ourselves. Moore ran his hands through his hair, his mind racing. We've had peaceful relations with some of the Council's members, but they've always seen us as insignificant. Now they'll see us as a threat, and we don't even know what kind of threat we're facing. Back on the icy plains of Antarctica, Ford and her team were still struggling to understand the significance of the artifact's sudden activation. As they watched the beam of light shoot toward the sky, something strange occurred. The energy fluctuated, and for a moment, everything went still. The humming of the equipment stopped. The lights flickered again. Then, as if answering an unseen question, the beam split into multiple arcs, each one directed at a different part of the world. The air hummed with energy, and the entire facility seemed to vibrate. "What is this?" Ford whispered. Dr. Porter looked at the data on her screen, her eyes wide with shock. "It's not just energy. It's a signal. It's sending something. A message, maybe. But to who?" The Council had been receiving the signal from Earth, and the same message repeated itself. "We are ready. Earth will join the war." No one could ignore it anymore. The fear among the galactic leaders grew with every passing minute, and the silence within their chambers was deafening. The most powerful species in the galaxy were now faced with the possibility that their greatest adversary was a tiny, insignificant species they had long ignored. The energy from the artifact reached its peak, and in the heart of the Galactic Council's territory, in the vast command center of the Council's headquarters, alarms began to blare. A report came in, delivered by an urgent message. "Earth is not what we thought. It may be the key to the war." And in that moment, the Council leaders realized just how wrong they had been about Earth, and how dangerous it was to underestimate a species that had only just begun to awaken. The Galactic Council had always considered itself the pinnacle of civilization. Spanning hundreds of planets and species, their collective power was immense. They had lived in peace for centuries, dealing with the occasional skirmish or rebellion, but nothing that truly threatened their rule. That was until Earth's sudden message, an invitation, or perhaps a challenge, to join the war that was quickly unfolding across the galaxy. It was a message that shook the foundations of everything they thought they knew. Councillor Varric of the Nenthar, a species known for its calm and rational leadership, was the first to speak. His large, rounded eyes narrowed as he scanned the information on the screen before him. He had seen many things in his time on the Council, but this was unlike anything he had ever expected. "Earth," he muttered, more to himself than anyone else in the chamber. The other Council members turned to him. "The humans. They've sent this message." A murmur of disbelief rippled through the room. The human species had always been dismissed as primitive, confined to their small, insignificant planet. They were barely a blip on the Council's radar, considered too young, too fragile to be a serious threat. Now suddenly, they were involved in a galactic war, a conflict that could decide the future of the universe. "Are we sure it's them?" Councillor Cass, an insectoid being with an iridescent exoskeleton, asked sharply. "Could it be a hoax, a trick?" "No," Varric replied, his voice heavy with a mix of awe and dread. "It is real. The energy signatures match something we've never seen before. This isn't a threat. This is something entirely new. We need to understand it." Another councillor, Taliak, an imposing figure from the Varrician species, stepped forward. His sharp features glinted under the soft lighting, and his voice was laced with a barely contained fury. "This is a mistake. The humans have no place in this war. If they think they can challenge us, they don't know what they're up against," interrupted Councillor Zevra, a tall, ethereal being whose glowing skin pulsed with an otherworldly light. "The artifact. It has power, the likes of which we cannot begin to comprehend. Earth has just discovered it, and they have made it clear that they will not stand by." Zevra's words brought a wave of silence to the chamber. For the first time in the history of the Galactic Council, Fear began to creep into the leaders' hearts. Earth, an insignificant, forgotten world, had somehow stumbled upon something far beyond their understanding, and that realization terrified them all. It is only a matter of time before the humans realize the full extent of what they've uncovered, Zevra continued. If they learn to harness the power of the artifact, they could become the greatest threat the galaxy has ever known. We cannot allow them to join the war. We cannot allow them to become a part of this conflict. The room fell quiet again. Each leader knew the weight of Zevra's words. The artifact's energy readings were unprecedented. It was not just a powerful weapon. It was a signal of something far more dangerous. A signal that Earth was no longer a passive player in the galactic drama. "We have no choice," Varric finally said, his voice grim. "We need to make contact with Earth. We need to learn what they know, and we need to stop them before they can fully unlock the artifact's potential." "But how?" Chaz asked. "They've already sent their message. The humans are aware of the artifact's power. They have no reason to listen to us now." Varric's eyes softened with a hint of regret. "We have no other option but to act swiftly. If the humans join the war, the balance of power will shift. It's too risky. The Council will need to act decisively." Meanwhile, on Earth, President Jonathan Moore sat in his war room, staring at the holographic display in front of him. The alien message, the same one he had received hours earlier, was now being transmitted back to the Galactic Council, a response to their fear and confusion. "We are ready. Earth will join the war." Moore had been briefed on the artifact's power. He knew that his planet was now at the center of a conflict that stretched beyond anything they could have imagined. But what choice did he have? The Council had made it clear that they would not stand by and let Earth grow stronger. They had to prepare for whatever came next, even if it meant entering a war they weren't prepared for. "We don't know what we're dealing with," Hawkins, his chief advisor, said from across the table. "If the Council comes for us, they won't hesitate to destroy everything in their path. We've never faced an enemy like this." Moore's gaze hardened. "We may be outmatched, but we are not powerless. We have the artifact, and we will use it. If the Council wants war, we'll show them that humanity is more than capable of defending itself." But deep down, Moore knew that this wasn't just about defending Earth anymore. This was about survival. If Earth didn't join the war, they risked being wiped out before they had a chance to prove their strength. The future of the galaxy had just become a game of high-stakes diplomacy, and Earth was playing for everything. Across the galaxy, the Council leaders were already preparing for their next move. They would not let Earth's awakening disrupt the balance of power they had so carefully built. A threat had emerged, and they would not hesitate to eliminate it before it could grow into something they couldn't control. As both sides prepared for the unknown, one thing was clear. The war had begun, and Earth had just entered the arena. The Council's decision to deal with Earth had been made, and their strategy was clear: prevent humanity from unlocking the full potential of the artifact. They would send an envoy to Earth to negotiate, or if necessary, force humanity's hand before things could escalate further. Every faction within the Council was aligned in their fear of Earth's sudden involvement. To them, it was no longer just a matter of power. It was a matter of survival. On Earth, President Jonathan Moore was already preparing for the worst. The message had been sent, and there was no turning back now. The Council's actions spoke volumes. They saw Earth's power as a threat. But Moore wasn't about to back down. The people of Earth had fought for their place in the galaxy for years, and now was no different. "I just received word that the Council's envoy is on its way," General Patricia Roberts said, standing in the war room beside Moore. "It's only a matter of time before they make their move." Moore nodded, his eyes fixed on the holographic map of the galaxy. The Council was vast and powerful, and they had the resources to strike Earth without hesitation. But that didn't mean they would succeed. Humanity had something they didn't: resilience, creativity, and the will to fight. "We need to make sure we're ready," Moore said. "We can't let them catch us off guard." The artifact is our best chance at survival, but we need to be prepared for whatever comes next. Roberts nodded, but the concern in her eyes was clear. I've been thinking about that. The artifact is powerful, but we still don't fully understand it. What if it's too much for us to control? What if we lose control over it? Moore turned to her, his expression hardening. We can't afford to think like that. We need to use what we have. We need to show the Council that we are not their subordinates. We're equals in this fight. Meanwhile, aboard the Council's flagship, high above a distant planet, the leaders were preparing for the worst. Varric, the Nenthar counselor, stood on the bridge, looking at the view screen. The battle fleet was ready to deploy. Their plan was simple: send a small force to Earth's orbit, intimidate the humans, and take control of the artifact before they could unlock its full potential. We cannot allow Earth to continue this, Varric said, his voice steady but filled with tension. The artifact is a weapon beyond anything we've ever seen. We cannot let them harness its power. Councillor Taliak, from the Varrikian species, nodded in agreement. We'll give them an ultimatum. Join the war on our terms, or face the consequences. If they refuse, we'll destroy them. It's as simple as that. I don't think it's that simple, Zevra, the ethereal counselor, said quietly. The humans are unpredictable. We have underestimated them before, and we may do so again. Varric turned to Zevra. What do you suggest, then? We can't wait any longer. Earth has already shown signs of defiance. They're not going to back down. Zevra's glowing form flickered as she spoke, her voice echoing with a sense of caution. We need to consider all possibilities. If we act too quickly, we risk pushing them into a corner where they have no choice but to use the artifact against us. We need to find out more. I still believe there's more to Earth than we know. Then you'll have to make sure they don't use the artifact. Taliak snapped. If they do, we'll all be at risk. Zevra's light dimmed for a moment as she turned her gaze toward the holographic map. Earth was small, insignificant even by the standards of the Galactic Council, but something about them had changed. The signal from Earth, once nothing more than a whisper, had become a thunderous roar. And now, the entire galaxy was watching, waiting for the outcome. Back on Earth, General Roberts was rallying the troops. She had seen the fear in Moore's eyes, but she also saw the resolve. She knew that every human on Earth had a part to play in what was coming. We've trained for this moment our whole lives, Roberts said to her team, her voice steady. We're not going to let them take our planet without a fight. Her team of elite soldiers, chosen for their experience and leadership, nodded in agreement. Earth was about to face its biggest challenge yet, and they would meet it head-on. The countdown to the battle had begun. The Galactic Council's fleet arrived just outside of Earth's orbit, a vast armada of ships, each one bristling with weapons. The message was clear. Earth had no choice but to comply. The humans had underestimated the Council's resolve, but President Moore and his military leaders had made their decision. There would be no surrender. We have to send a message of our own, Moore said, standing tall in the war room. We're not afraid to fight. We will not bow to anyone, not even the Galactic Council. His words were the spark that lit the fire. Earth was about to face the greatest test of its existence. Every person on the planet, from the soldiers on the front lines to the scientists in their labs, knew what was at stake. They had something the Council didn't expect, a deep, unshakable belief in the power of humanity. And now, they would prove it. The first shots were fired. The battle for Earth had begun. The silence of space was broken as the first shots rang out. The Council's fleet, a vast collection of ships with advanced weaponry, initiated their assault on Earth's defenses. The shockwaves of energy spread across Earth's atmosphere as missiles and laser fire from the Council's ships collided with Earth's orbital defense shields. In the command center, President Moore stood, watching the live feed of the battle. His face was grim, but his eyes were steely with resolve. The stakes had never been higher. Humanity had always faced challenges, but this was different. The enemy was no longer another country or a rogue faction. It was the entire galaxy, a coalition of powerful species that had controlled the universe for centuries. "Brace for impact," shouted General Roberts as alarms blared through the war room. The Earth's fleet, made up of human ships, was preparing to intercept the Council's attack. Their ships weren't as advanced as the Council's, but they were fast, agile, and capable of adapting on the fly. What they lacked in technology, they made up for in sheer willpower. On the battlefield, Earth's ships darted through the stars, firing their weapons at the oncoming Council ships. They weren't able to stop the enemy's attack entirely, but they did manage to create a few openings. Captain Ethan Drake, the leader of Earth's flagship Invictus, guided his crew with precision. "Target their engines," Captain Drake commanded, his voice calm but firm. "We need to cripple their ships before they can regroup." The Invictus fired its weapons, striking the engines of a Council warship. The explosion was bright, lighting up the void of space. Earth's fleet cheered, but the victory was short-lived. More Council ships appeared from the depths of space, flanking Earth's forces. "They're overwhelming us," Lieutenant Sarah Mendoza reported from her station. "We can't hold them off much longer." The odds were stacked against Earth, but the people of the planet refused to give up. The first clash had shown them that they were capable of fighting, even if it seemed like a lost cause. As the battle raged on, Moore made a bold decision. It was time to use the artifact. Back on Earth, the top-secret facility that held the mysterious artifact was on high alert. Scientists and military leaders had worked day and night to understand its true potential. The artifact, which had been dormant for so long, had now become their last hope. "We're activating it," Moore ordered, his voice unwavering. "This is humanity's chance to show the Council that we are not just another species to be ruled. We are something more." The artifact, once thought to be an ancient relic, began to hum with a low, powerful frequency. Energy swirled around it, and its glow intensified. The artifact was not just a weapon. It was a force of nature, unlike anything the universe had ever seen. As it powered up, the Council's ships in orbit felt a strange, inexplicable sensation. It was as if the very fabric of space had shifted. On board the flagship Aurora, the Council's supreme commander, Varric, felt the disturbance as well. He turned to his officers, his face pale. "Something is happening on Earth," Varric said. "I don't know what it is, but I can feel it. We need to investigate immediately." Zevra, the ethereal counselor, stood beside him, her form flickering in the dim light. "It's the artifact. I've sensed its activation. If they control it, they will have a power greater than we ever imagined. We cannot let that happen." Varric clenched his fists. "Prepare the fleet to engage at full power. We need to stop this before it's too late." Back on Earth, Moore watched the artifact with a mix of awe and apprehension. "We don't fully understand it yet," he admitted to General Roberts. "But we have to use it now. Our very survival depends on it." The artifact continued to hum, its energy radiating outward. It was clear that something big was coming, but what? Would it be their salvation, or would it be their doom? As the Council's fleet moved closer, Earth's military made its final stand. But they weren't fighting alone anymore. The artifact, glowing with unimaginable power, seemed to have awakened something deep within the Earth itself. It was as if the planet itself was responding. Ships, once grounded and forgotten, began to rise from hidden bunkers. Ancient technology, buried deep under Earth's surface for millennia, began to reactivate. Earth was no longer simply defending itself. It was preparing for war on an entirely new level. "I knew it," said General Roberts, watching the new ships rise from the ground. "Earth was always capable of more. We just needed to find the right moment." The battle raged on, but now the Council was facing something they had never anticipated. They had underestimated Earth before, but this time they had awakened something far more powerful than any of them had imagined. As Earth's ships, now bolstered by the power of the artifact, launched into the fray, the Council's forces faltered. The balance of power had shifted in an instant, and for the first time, the Council was uncertain of the outcome. "This battle isn't over," Moore said to his team, his voice filled with determination. "But we've just proven that Earth will not fall." In the vacuum of space, amidst the roar of battle, the fate of humanity hung in the balance. Would the artifact truly be their salvation, or would it be their undoing? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. Earth had just made its mark on the galaxy, and the Council would never look at them the same way again. The battle raged on outside Earth's orbit, but inside, humanity had just taken its most critical step. The artifact, once a dormant enigma, now pulsed with an energy unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. With every heartbeat of its hum, its power seemed to resonate through the air, as though the planet itself was awakening to join the fray. On the war-torn surface of Earth, President Moore watched the live feed from the battle. The screen showed the Council's ships retreating, momentarily faltering in the face of the sudden surge of energy from the artifact. For the first time, they looked unsure, their fleets hesitating as Earth's defenses strengthened in unexpected ways. "We've never seen anything like it," General Roberts said, her voice filled with a mix of awe and disbelief. "It's as if the artifact is not only empowering our ships, but somehow enhancing our defenses as well." Moore nodded, his face grim. The artifact wasn't just a weapon. It was something far more dangerous, far more ancient. It had been hidden for so long, its secrets buried beneath Earth's surface, for a reason. Yet now, with the Council's fleet bearing down on them, humanity had no choice but to use it. The power it unleashed was enough to turn the tide of the war. But that power also carried a heavy burden. There were still too many unknowns. As the artifact's energy intensified, so did the strange phenomenon it had created, an invisible field stretching out into space, affecting both sides. Earth's ships were stronger, their weapons more precise, but the Council's fleet was growing increasingly erratic, their own technology seemingly disrupted by the artifact's energy. Captain Ethan Drake, standing at the helm of the Invictus, felt the strange sensation firsthand. His ship, once a well-oiled machine, was now experiencing sudden surges of power, followed by glitches in its systems. He turned to his officer. "Lieutenant Mendoza, check the engines. We're not operating at full capacity. Something's wrong." Mendoza furiously worked her console, eyes wide in confusion. "Sir, the engines are stable, but the power systems are fluctuating. It's like the artifact is interfering with our own tech." Drake gritted his teeth. The artifact's energy was unpredictable, and though they had gained the upper hand, they were still at risk of losing control over their own forces. The Invictus was one of Earth's most advanced ships, but it was built with human technology, not the alien tech embedded within the artifact. Meanwhile, aboard the flagship Aurora, Councillor Varick was growing increasingly frustrated. The once confident fleet of the Council was now on the defensive, their systems flickering and their weaponry malfunctioning. Varick stood in front of the view screen, watching as Earth's forces regrouped, their ships now more powerful than before. "This artifact is a far greater threat than we anticipated," Varick muttered to himself. "It's affecting not only the humans, but our own fleet as well. If they continue to control it, we could be in serious danger." Councillor Taliak, standing beside him, was furious. "This was never supposed to happen. We were supposed to intimidate them, force them into submission. Instead, they turned the artifact into a weapon we can't counter." Varick clenched his fists. The Council's plans were unraveling before his eyes. Earth was no longer the helpless, insignificant species they had assumed. They had unleashed a force that could change the course of the entire war. "We need to neutralize the artifact," Varick said, his voice low with resolve. "If we don't, Earth will not only survive this conflict, they will be the ones to dictate the terms of the galaxy's future." Zevra, the ethereal counselor, spoke from the shadows of the command bridge. "I warned you all. The artifact is beyond our comprehension. It's not just a weapon. It's a force of nature, a relic of an ancient power we cannot fully understand. If we don't approach it carefully, we risk losing everything. Varric turned sharply, glaring at her. And what do you suggest? Do we retreat? Let them take control of the galaxy's future. We can't afford to do that. Zevra's glowing form dimmed as she considered the question. No, but we cannot continue to fight blindly either. We need to understand the artifact better. If there is any hope of neutralizing it, we must find its weakness. On Earth, the fight was only getting more intense. Despite the sudden surge of power from the artifact, the Council wasn't giving up. They had retreated, but only temporarily. They were regrouping, sending out smaller, specialized squads to assess the artifact's energy and find a way to exploit its vulnerabilities. We need to prepare for their next move, General Roberts said, pacing back and forth in the war room. The artifact is giving us an edge, but we don't know how long it will last. We need to be ready for whatever comes next. Moore nodded gravely. We can't trust that the artifact will be enough to win this war for us. It's powerful, but it's still a mystery. We have to continue fighting. The artifact may be our greatest asset, but our greatest strength lies in our unity. If we stand together, we can overcome even the Council's might. The energy field created by the artifact had expanded, and Earth's ships were starting to experience strange effects as well. Some were able to harness the artifact's power and enhance their weapons, but others were suffering from complete systems malfunctions. The entire fleet was on edge. The Council was not the only threat to humanity now. The artifact itself was unpredictable, and they were learning to use it as best they could. As the tension mounted, Moore's voice rang out in the war room, cutting through the noise. We fight as one. Earth will not fall. We will control our own destiny, with or without the Council's approval. Outside, in the cold void of space, the battle continued. The artifact's energy still pulsed like a heartbeat, its power now intertwined with Earth's very will to survive. But the Council was regrouping, preparing for a counterattack that would test everything humanity had fought for. The fate of Earth and the entire galaxy hung in the balance. The artifact had done its work. Earth's forces were now stronger than ever, their ships crackling with new energy, their weapons more powerful and precise. The Council, however, was not ready to give up. They had regrouped and prepared for their most decisive strike yet, knowing that Earth's involvement in this war would not only change the balance of power in the galaxy, it could end it altogether. Inside the war room, President Moore looked over the updated data with a grim expression. The Council's forces were massing at the edge of the solar system, readying for an all-out assault. The artifact's power had given humanity a fighting chance, but that power came at a cost. There was still too much they didn't understand about the artifact's capabilities and its potential dangers. We don't have much time, General Roberts said, scanning the information on the holographic display. The Council is closing in fast. We're not sure how long this surge will last. Moore nodded, his gaze steady. We need to buy as much time as we can. We can't let them reach Earth. This is our last chance to turn the tide of the war in our favor. Drake, aboard the Invictus, stared out the window at the vastness of space. The Council's ships were approaching, their fleets massive and intimidating. Yet for the first time, Earth's ships were not retreating. They were holding their ground. The Invictus's systems, enhanced by the artifact, now pulsed with a new kind of energy, but the risk of losing control was still a real threat. Captain, Mendoza said urgently, we've got incoming. The Council's fleet is nearly upon us. We have to engage. Drake's face was determined, but the weight of the decision pressed on him. He knew the risks. The artifact could either help them win or doom them all. There was no middle ground. Prepare for battle, Drake ordered, his voice steady. We fight for Earth, and we fight for the future of every sentient being in the galaxy. Meanwhile, on the Council's flagship Aurora, Varric stood in front of the command center, his eyes narrowed as he watched Earth's ships preparing to meet them. The Council had always been in control of the galaxy's fate, but now, for the first time, They were facing a force that could challenge their supremacy. We need to break them before they fully understand the artifact's power, Varric said, his voice cold. Prepare the fleet for a full assault. We cannot allow Earth to rise against us. As the two sides prepared for battle, the fate of the galaxy seemed uncertain. The Council was ruthless, their fleets vast and powerful. Yet humanity had something they did not: determination. The will to fight for a future free from the tyranny of the Council's control. The first shots were fired in space, the distant stars briefly illuminated by the flare of energy. Humanity's ships, empowered by the artifact, surged forward, their weapons glowing with new strength. The Invictus fired first, its beams striking a Council destroyer with pinpoint accuracy. It wasn't enough to destroy it, but it was enough to send a clear message. Earth was not afraid. For every Council ship that engaged, another Earth ship held its ground. The artifact's energy coursed through their vessels, making them faster, stronger, and more agile than the Council had ever anticipated. But the Council's forces weren't weak. They fought with precision, their weapons more advanced than anything Earth had seen before. "This is it," General Roberts said, watching the battle unfold on the screen. "We're holding our own, but the Council is relentless. We need something more." Moore's eyes were filled with determination as he watched the battle rage on. He knew they couldn't win this fight on sheer power alone. They needed to outsmart the Council, to use the artifact in ways no one had thought possible. "It's time to make our move," Moore said. "Activate the second phase of the artifact. We need to push the Council back." At the same time, Varric made his own decision. The Council's fleet had suffered some losses, but they were not yet defeated. The artifact's power had given Earth a fighting chance, but it had also opened up weaknesses in their own defense systems. If they could exploit those weaknesses, they might still win the war. Varric ordered his forces to launch a final, concentrated assault on Earth's ships, hoping to break through their defenses and seize control of the artifact. But Earth's ships, synchronized and enhanced by the artifact's power, responded with unmatched precision. The Invictus led the charge, its weapons devastating everything in its path. The Council's ships faltered, unable to keep up with the new pace of the battle. Minutes turned into hours as the two forces clashed in space, a battle unlike any the galaxy had seen before. The artifact continued to pulse with energy, its power growing stronger with every passing moment. But as the battle neared its climax, something unexpected happened. The artifact, once a tool of war, seemed to reach out beyond Earth's ships. A shockwave of energy erupted, radiating outward, pushing both the Council and Earth's forces back. It wasn't a weapon, it was a signal. The artifact had awoken something else, something ancient, that no one had anticipated. The shockwave stopped the battle in its tracks. The ships, both human and alien, were frozen in place as the energy reached its peak. The artifact had become more than just a weapon. It had become a beacon, sending a message to the galaxy. And that message was clear. Earth was not just a player in this war. Earth was a force to be reckoned with, and its role in the galaxy was far from over. The Council, stunned and unsure of their next move, watched as the energy of the artifact began to dissipate. The war was far from over, but Earth had proven one thing: they would not be intimidated. The battle had ended, but the war for the galaxy's future was just beginning.